Hi guys, this time I wanted to show you another subject that I was looking forward to present for quite a while, and it's about the tardigrade or water bear. Basically, the water bear is a tiny little creature. It's actually an animal because it has most of the characteristics that are common to animals, like having a nervous system, multiple cells, a metabolism that is characteristic of animals, and yet it's very small. It's just about, it can grow up to half a millimeter, so it's barely visible. This creature is very easy to capture because it lives practically everywhere in the planet, and it's capable of thriving in a very large variety of environments. This time I was able to capture it simply by going to the park and then finding lichens attached to the trees. So I took home a few of those lichen samples and let the sample lay for about a day in distilled water. Then I grabbed the distilled water, selected part of it, seemed to be more concentrated with more stuff, put it on a petri dish, and then started trying to find the creatures inside the petri dish. So what you see here are observations done directly on the petri dish. So you will find tardigrades along with nematodes, which is also an animal. It's also a multicellular creature, and as you can see, it moves very quickly, it's very dynamic, and some of the species of nematodes are actually parasites. These in particular, I don't know if they are of the parasitic type or not. I know that some of the parasite species can actually live in a natural environment, in a free environment, and then become parasitic inside hosts. Some actually only have as host the human being. These in particular, I don't know, I have no idea. They seem to be very small for being of that parasitic type, but I'm not sure. And then there's also paramecia, and there's also another animal that is called a Rotifer. This animal, the Rotifer, as you can see in the pictures, it's quite transparent to light. You can see completely the inside of its body, just like the tardigrade, but the tardigrade is slightly darker, and the way it moves is quite peculiar because it practically turns its body into a ball and then extends itself very much. It has a very elastic body. There are various species of Rotifers. The ones that are more abundant in this sample are simpler, but I could also spot another type of Rotifer which has two discs in its mouth. These are called Rotor Discs. However, they do not have rotary motion, unlike it was initially thought. The first people who were able to observe this creature, they actually have cilia which moves in a synchronized way, such that it gives the impression of actual spinning motion. I was personally looking at this individual, and it was really like if it had two discs spinning. It's amazing. This kind of cilia motion can also be observed in other non-animal species like paramecia. Certain paramecia have also this kind of motion in organs which exhibit this kind of motion. This, like I said before, this sample was let in culture for one day, almost 24 hours. However, I can tell that there's presence of bacteria. If you look in detail, you will see some white spots all over the field of view. Some exhibit motility, some don't, but it's quite clear that there are several species of bacteria in the sample, and I've been studying this for a couple of days after having picked up the sample, and it's obviously the bacteria content is growing. I could see that some nematodes began to die. Also, the tardigrades actually seem to have died because they had absolutely no motion, and they seemed more transparent than the ones that would exhibit motion. So I cannot be sure that they're dead because I don't have enough knowledge to distinguish from microscopic observation if they're actually dead or not. Also taking into account that these animals can assume a state of hibernation, very low body metabolism, so it's not obvious. Still regarding the tardigrade, also known as water bear, this tiny microscopic animal is quite special for, as I mentioned before, for its ability to survive in extreme conditions, but it have been subject to experiments in a mission to space. Astronauts were able to keep tardigrades subject to the vacuum of space, exposed to extreme ultraviolet radiation, and after the 10 days of the experiment, they brought the specimen containing the tardigrades back to Earth. They realized that 65% of that population of tardigrades actually survived and were able to reproduce like regular tardigrades after they were rehydrated, which is quite remarkable. There is still a lot to be learned about tardigrades. There are tardigradologists who are currently working to understand better the species, to understand the mechanisms by which this animal is capable of achieving cryptobiosis, survive, stay alive, keep its cells alive during its cryptobiosis state. It's worth mentioning that the cryptobiosis state is characterized by the animal being able to only preserve about 3% of its normal levels of body water for prolonged periods of time. So understanding how this mechanism works is important also because of other areas such as human health. Find out mechanisms how humans can survive more extreme conditions. Ultimately, for space exploration, it's an important topic. Even though the tardigrade is capable of surviving in these extreme conditions that were mentioned, it cannot be considered an extremophile animal because, in fact, while under these extreme conditions, it cannot be said that it thrives, it just survives, it manages to stay alive. Whereas a true extremophile animal is capable of thriving, of reproducing, of undergoing its normal metabolic activities, living normally in these extreme conditions. Another interesting property of tardigrades is that these are eutelic, which means that all adult individuals in the same species have the same number of cells. Normally, the cell count in tardigrades is around the tens of thousands. So if, for instance, a given tardigrade species, an adult individual has 40,000 cells, every other individual of that species will have exactly the same cell count. Curiously, there are two other multicellular organisms in this sample that are also eutelic. These are the nematodes and the rotifers. Both these two creatures exhibit the same property of having an exact number of cells, which is equal in every individual of the same species. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video, so please vote and subscribe my channel, as you will be contributing for it having a fair ranking in YouTube searches, and you will always be aware of every fresh new content that I post into this channel. So thank you, bye bye.